you for choosing the Rescue Max from Rescue Solutions International, the choice of professionals whose mission is saving lives. This video will show you how to load your Rescue Max, how to properly deploy it, and how to repack the unit. The Rescue Max has many capabilities depending on the accessories and options you have chosen. Whether deploying the line only, or a line with sling, or grappling hook, many of the steps are the same. The procedures for repacking the various line or appliance options are reviewed separately in this video. So for repacking a specific appliance after deployment, you may want to shuttle to the appropriate segment of the tape depending on the accessories you purchased. The basic configuration of the Rescue Max consists of the launcher, the folding stock, and the line container. The line container for your Rescue Max will be selected according to your line needs and usage. Different line options require the large container, shown here, while others utilize the compact line container. The folding stock is a useful accessory to aim the projectile more accurately. When in the folded position, the stock becomes a convenient carrying handle. The streamline filler hose assembly is used to deliver compressed air from a compressor, SCBA bottle, or scuba bottle to the projectile cylinder. This provides the charge for the launcher. Specific fittings must be used for interfacing with each of the following: North American SCBA, European SCBA DIN, Japanese SCBA, and scuba. Please ensure that your streamline filler hose is equipped properly for your source of compressed air. The line projectile will deploy a variety of line over a range of distance, depending on the service pressure and the type of line used. The PVC foam protector is intended to protect the projectile cylinder from damage on contact. If the protector shows signs of damage after use, it must be removed, the cylinder must be inspected, and the projectile cover must be replaced. Each projectile is serialized and date stamped and is intended to serve a maximum life of 5 years from the date of manufacture and must be removed from service at that time or sooner if damage is evident. A training projectile is designed for training or for repeated use when deploying a line from the launch point to a hard surface, such as ship-to-ship line deployment. The factory-installed protective cover is manufactured from a low-recoil urethane material, providing protection for the projectile and reducing projectile bounce on arrival. The phosphorescent projectile has a factory-installed phosphorescent protective cover, combining the best features of high initial brightness and long afterglow for visibility during nighttime use. The pigments used respond quickly to excitation by daylight, incandescent light, fluorescent, or ultraviolet light. This excitation process can be repeated indefinitely. Line options include 4mm and 6mm spectra line, 3mm Dacron line, 8mm polyspectra, various polypropylene lines, and 2mm spectra with Dacron leader. You can review the line chart in the operator's manual for more information on line thickness, load capacity, and performance. Additional line options are available. The kit carry bag is made up of rugged Cordura and has a weatherproof membrane over the entire footprint. The rigid rail case is designed to be fastened to the railing of a platform or stern rail of a vessel, making the Rescue Max immediately available in the event of an emergency. It can also be utilized as a rugged transport or storage case. Prior to filling the projectile, please note, use compressed air only. The use of any flammable or combustible compressed gases, including oxygen-enriched compressed air, especially at high pressures, may result in a spontaneous explosion causing severe injuries or death. And also note that the operating service pressure of the projectile should only be exceeded in response to a life-threatening emergency, and under no circumstances should it be exceeded by more than 20%. Ignoring this advice may cause an accident that results in severe injuries or death. To properly fill the projectile, you need a source of compressed air that is at least capable of reaching the service pressure of the projectile. The standard projectile has a service pressure of 3,000 psi, 207 bar. The streamline filler hose assembly is required to recharge the projectiles with compressed air. It consists of a filler block that includes a pressure gauge and bleed screw, as well as the connecting hose from the compressed air source. Note: projectiles delivered after the summer of 2005 are equipped with the streamlined nozzle assembly shown here. The black nozzle protector replaces the original aluminum nozzle protector seen throughout this video. The care and maintenance of the streamlined nozzle assembly is the same as the procedures shown in this video. Also note that equipment purchased prior to the summer of 2005 is equipped with the original Rescue Max filler assembly and nozzle. The original Rescue Max filler assembly and nozzle and the newer streamlined nozzle assembly are not interchangeable. The streamlined nozzle assembly is intended to be used only with the streamlined filler assembly, not the original Rescue Max filler assembly. If you try to use the streamlined nozzle protector with the original Rescue Max nozzle assembly and filler assembly, you will experience a high-pressure failure while filling the projectiles. Failure to heed this warning could result in severe injury or death. Each projectile is comprised of two principal parts: the projectile cylinder and a nozzle valve assembly, shown here with bridle lines installed. Key components include the nozzle valve protector, and the nozzle valve body. Begin by attaching one end of the streamlined filler hose assembly to your compressed air source using the appropriate fitting. Next, check that the valve key on the projectile to be filled is in the open position. When the valve key is in line with the flow of air, the valve is open. When perpendicular to the flow of air, the valve is closed. To charge the projectile cylinder, apply finger pressure on the collar of the filler valve assembly and retract it back. Then insert the neck of the nozzle into the collar. Ensure that the red bleed screw on the streamlined filler hose assembly is closed. Ensure that the nozzle valve is in the open position, with the valve in line with the flow of air. Open the air supply and very slowly fill the projectile bottle to 3200 psi, 220 bar. Note: if you hear air escaping, the O-ring in the filler block or nozzle needs to be replaced. Once desired pressure is attained, close the air supply. Remove the wrench from the streamlined filler hose assembly and close the valve in the projectile by turning it 90 degrees. Ensure that the valve key is perpendicular to the flow of air. Always replace the filler hose wrench back in the lanyard on the filler hose. Next, locate the drain port adjacent to the red bleed screw. Point the drain hole down and away from the operator and open the bleed screw, draining pressure from the filler assembly. Retract the spring-loaded collar on the streamlined filler hose assembly and detach the filler hose from the projectile. Store the recharged projectile in a safe location. Note: it is best to store charged projectiles in a constant temperature environment, protected from the elements. Charged projectiles should be so marked. Pressure in stored projectiles should be checked periodically to verify that the desired service operating pressure is being maintained. Caution: if projectiles are subject to extreme heat, the pressure could rise sufficiently to rupture the pressure relief assembly and allow the air to escape, preventing the use of the equipment. To extend the stock from the collapsed position, push downward at the butt of the stock and apply pressure with your thumb on the butt to release the stock. Then simply rotate the stock to the rear of the launcher. As you do, the stock catch plate will automatically engage. To fold the stock back to the collapsed position for use as a handle, pull back on the stock catch plate with your thumb to disengage the catch. Fold the stock over the top of the barrel and engage the butt of the stock with the sighting hook on the front of the barrel. All lines used with the Rescue Max may be repacked in the field by hand without the use of any special equipment. Each line has a dedicated dead end and a live end. To begin packing, disconnect the line container from the launcher and hold it vertically with the door open toward you. The dead end of the rope is the end with the snap shackle. Allow 12 inches or 30 centimeters of the dead end of the rope to hang freely outside of the right side of the container and begin dropping the line inside the container. Pull the line from over your shoulder so you can push it down into the container hand over hand using short strokes. Allow the line to fall into the container in a random crisscross pattern to avoid any snarls when it's deployed. Periodically, push the line down into the bag more tightly to make more room. When all the line is packed inside the container, close the container door. Leave the live end of the line, this is the end with the cutaway pin permanently attached through the notch on the left side of the door catch, and the dead end of the line through the notch on the right side. Next, reinstall the line container on the launcher. To connect the launcher to the line container, place the inverted T-bracket on the bottom of the barrel, on top of the line container, just behind the inverted T-groove on the upper front portion of the line container. Align the bottom of the handle so that the notches on the handle will engage with the flange at the rear of the line container. Then, slide the launcher forward inside both the front and rear grooves of the line container simultaneously. Push firmly forward until the catch on the launcher automatically engages in the locking hole in the line container. Next, attach the dead end of the line to the eyelet behind the T-bracket on the underside of the barrel casing. This will ensure the line does not separate from the launcher after discharge. Alternatively, the dead end may be lashed to a secure anchor point prior to or after discharge while the launcher is readied for subsequent shots. Finally, insert the projectile and connect the Quick Connect link attached to the bridle lines of the projectile to the live end of the line protruding from the line container. And your unit is ready to fire. Note, the main line and bridle line should be inspected after each use for fraying or damage before storing for later use. If immersed in seawater during use, all lines and projectiles should be rinsed with fresh water and dried thoroughly. Inspect the line before packing, then pack as shown. Any damaged or frayed lines must be permanently removed from service. When using the line projectile with the Rescue Max, a black PVC foam projectile cover is recommended. Each line projectile is supplied with a protector slipped over the projectile cylinder. The protector may be removed to inspect the projectile cylinder for damage and can be reinstalled. However, if the protector shows any sign of damage, it should be removed immediately, and the cylinder should be inspected. A lubricant may be required to remove the PVC foam protector from the cylinder. To remove the training projectile cover, it may be necessary to cut it completely. The bridle lines are used to connect the projectile to the line. To begin, pull the quick connect that connects the bridle lines to allow the projectile to find the center point of the bridle lines. Insert the line projectile into the launcher with the V in the nozzle protector upward, keeping the bridle lines tight and uncrossed along each side of the projectile. The bridle line should nest in the grooves in the barrel of the launcher. Rotate the projectile as necessary until you feel the V groove engage with the mechanism and apply pressure to the projectile. An audible click will signal that the projectile is engaged with the mechanism. Connect the Quick Connect, holding the bridle line loops to the loop in the live end of the line, protruding through the notch on the line container door. Be careful not to disengage the cutaway pin, which fastens the container door closed. Note, if you do not get the nozzle protector lined up properly, the nozzle will not be able to slide into the mechanism. An audible click indicates the safety assembly is engaged. The valve in the nozzle of each projectile is intended to be opened using the valve key attached to the launcher housing. The V-groove on the nozzle protector properly aligns the nozzle valve with the valve key. The valve key is not engaged with the nozzle valve when fully extended. The valve key is engaged with the nozzle valve when fully depressed. To open the nozzle valve on the projectile, fully depress the valve key in the vertical position and maintain a constant pressure. Rotate the valve key 90 degrees clockwise. Then release the valve key, allowing it to extend fully. If the valve in the nozzle of the projectile is open, the nozzle valve will be in the horizontal position. To close it, fully depress the valve key in the horizontal position and maintain a constant pressure. Rotate the valve key 90 degrees counterclockwise. Then release the valve key, allowing it to extend fully. The safety push knob is a circular black button located on the same side of the launcher as the valve key, directly above the trigger. The safety push knob is at rest when protruding slightly from the side of the launcher housing. The safety assembly automatically engages each time that a projectile is inserted into the launcher. An audible click indicates that the safety has engaged. Press the safety push knob to the off position immediately before firing the launcher. When in the off position, the safety push knob remains slightly recessed inside the cavity. After firing the launcher, the safety assembly will reset itself to accept the next projectile. When a new projectile is loaded, the trigger will automatically move forward once the safety is engaged. If the safety push knob has been pressed to the off position, and for any reason it becomes necessary to reset the safety without firing the launcher, reach inside the cavity holding the safety push knob and rotate the safety push knob clockwise. A rotation of only a few degrees is required. The safety push knob will return to its rest position, protruding slightly from the side of the launcher housing, indicating that the safety assembly has been re-engaged and is in the on position. Each launcher is equipped with a bleed screw located near the RescueMax label on the launcher. The bleed screw handle swivels over the bleed screw bolt to permit the bleed screw to be turned without interfering with the folding stock. The first purpose of the bleed screw is to permit the operator to reduce the operating pressure of the projectile prior to discharge. To discharge pressure, open the nozzle valve to pressurize the launcher. Then, rotate the bleed screw handle counterclockwise until you hear air escaping. Monitor the pressure gauge until the desired operating pressure is achieved. Then, rotate the bleed screw clockwise to stop the escape of air. In the event you elect not to fire a charged projectile, the bleed screw can also be used to bleed off pressure in the mechanism in order to remove a charged projectile. To do so, close the nozzle valve in the launcher. Rotate the bleed screw handle counterclockwise quickly, allowing the air to escape. Then, rotate the bleed screw clockwise to tighten. The projectile may now be removed by pressing the safety knob and pulling the trigger. Note, there is a small nylon insert pressed into the threaded end of the bleed screw that seals the opening when the bleed screw is tightened. If the bleed screw is removed entirely for maintenance or any reason, ensure that the nylon insert remains fixed to the bleed screw prior to returning the RescueMax unit to service. The sling is an auto-inflatable flotation harness that is contained in a sling burst capsule. The sling can be attached to a projectile for deployment to a victim in the water. Once the burst capsule is immersed in the water, the sling inflates automatically, providing buoyancy to a victim. The sling burst capsule may not be used with a projectile protector. The sling comes packed and ready for first-time use. After each deployment into the water, you will need to replace the CO2 cartridge and the soluble bobbin. Prior to repacking, inspect the sling burst capsule. If it is damaged, replace it with a new burst capsule. To repack your sling, first release the clip as shown here. Note, it is essential that you deflate the sling completely. It will not fit into the plastic burst capsule unless this is done. To deflate the sling, remove the black cap on the red oil inflator tube and reinsert it upside down on the inflator tube to release all the air. Once the sling is completely deflated, reinstall the black cap over the oil inflator tube right side up. Note, if the black cap is left inverted inside the red oil inflator tube, the CO2 will escape from the sling on activation. After each deployment, rinse all components thoroughly in fresh water. and allow all components to dry completely. Once dry, unscrew the bobbin cap from the auto inflator and remove the yellow plastic bobbin. To insert a new bobbin, align the grooves on the edge of the bobbin with the raised edges inside the auto inflator mechanism. Be sure the white ridges in one side of the bobbin are facing out. Do this first before you replace the CO2 cartridge. Screw the bobbin back into place. Remove the CO2 cartridge, turning it counterclockwise. You can tell if a cartridge has been used because the end of the capsule will be punctured. Install a new CO2 cartridge firmly into place. Next, fold the sling in half. Then fold it a second time as shown. Before rolling up the sling, be certain the bridle lines are fully extended away from the sling. Note, it is critical that the loop in the bridle lines should be at the apex of the bridle lines as shown here. Note the position of the strobe light. Before rolling up the sling, place the tab under the auto inflator. Then, organize the bridle and main lines so they are not tangled and are clear of the sling. Roll the sling tightly with the auto inflator on the inside of the roll. Insert the rolled sling into the plastic burst capsule through the slit on the side. The bridle lines in the bobbin cap must face the open end of the burst capsule. Insert one end first, then push the rest into the capsule. Squeeze the capsule back into shape. Finally, you may want to use Scotch tape to secure the burst capsule. To attach the sling burst capsule to a projectile, fit the burst capsule directly onto the metal projectile cylinder. Feed the projectile bridle lines through the loop in the burst capsule bridle line. Place the loop in the burst capsule bridle line over the nozzle and neck of the cylinder. Tuck any slack in the bridle line into the hole in the burst capsule. Insert the projectile into the launcher. And connect the quick connect to the live end of the line. You are now ready to deploy the auto-inflating flotation harness. Note, if the sling with burst capsule is not properly attached, the sling may become separated from the line after inflation. If this occurs, it will be necessary to retrieve the sling by other means at your disposal. Please note, feed the projectile bridle lines through the loop in the burst capsule bridle line. Then place the loop in the burst capsule bridle line over the nozzle and neck of the cylinder. The grappling hook is a lightweight titanium hook intended to be used for establishing a line across a river or stream, for example, or to recover a mooring line from the water. The grappling hook may not be used with a projectile protector. To attach the grappling hook to the projectile, remove the bridle lines together with the quick disconnect from the projectile. Using a projectile without a protector, fit the grappling hook assembly over the blunt end of the line projectile cylinder. Measure a length of the live end of the line from the front of the barrel and back again. Loop the line around the neck of the projectile nozzle and secure the line with the Velcro strap. Attach the bridle lines to the projectile nozzle. Press the safety push knob to ensure that the safety is in the off position internally. Insert the line projectile into the launcher with the V and the nozzle protector upward, keeping the line tight on each side of the projectile. Rotate the projectile as necessary until you feel the V-groove engage with the mechanism, and apply pressure to the projectile. An audible click will signal that the projectile is engaged with the mechanism. Lash the tether at the live end of the line to the eyelet on the shaft of the grappling hook using a bowline or similar secure knot. Attach the quick connect on the bridle lines to the live end of the line. Your grappling hook is now ready for deployment. Before deploying the Rescue Max, conduct a visual inspection to ensure that the bridle lines are properly connected to the live end of the line, and that the dead end of the line is connected to the eyelet on the launcher or otherwise secured. Note: if you are deploying the sling, check that the loop in the bridle line from the burst capsule is properly installed over the neck of the projectile. Fully depress the valve key in the vertical position and rotate the valve key 90 degrees clockwise to the horizontal position, then release the valve key. Check the pressure gauge to verify pressure. A no pressure reading may indicate that you did not successfully open the valve in the nozzle or that your projectile was not charged with air. Hold the butt of the stock against your shoulder as you would a firearm at a 35-degree angle and aim over the victim or target. Press the safety push knob to the off position to release the release mechanism. Squeeze the trigger, holding the Rescue Max steady as the projectile leaves the launcher and the line pays out. The projectile can be used over and over again if cared for properly. Any visible damage to the projectile on the exterior is cause for immediate replacement. Do not attempt to refill a damaged cylinder. This may cause an accident resulting in bodily injury or death. After use and before filling again to be stored, the projectile should have the nozzle assembly removed and be allowed to completely dry inside. Often, especially if deployed in seawater, there will be water residue in the cylinder that may give rise to corrosion if not removed. To dry the inside of the projectile cylinder, unscrew the nozzle assembly from the end of the projectile. Flush all parts, including the nozzle, with fresh water and let dry. Inspect the inside and outside for any damage or corrosion. Once dried, replace the nozzle assembly. Do not over-tighten. There is an O-ring on the projectile nozzle which is reusable and less damaged. A replacement O-ring is included. Do not use any sealant or tape on the thread of the nozzle. After normal use, apply a small amount of corrosion block on the threads and inside the projectile cylinder. If the projectile is unable to hold air, the O-rings on the nozzle plug in the nozzle valve may have become worn or damaged, and it will be necessary to replace them. Use only the O-rings supplied by Rescue Solutions International. These O-rings are of a special composition and hardness and are specially suited for this purpose. Begin by removing the nozzle assembly from the projectile by unscrewing it. Remove the O-ring from the nozzle threads and slide the nozzle protector off of the nozzle body. Remove the nozzle plug retaining clip from the nozzle valve plug using circlip pliers. Then push the nozzle valve plug downward out of the nozzle body. Once the nozzle valve plug has been removed, remove and discard the old O-rings. Thoroughly clean the nozzle valve plug as well as the bore of the nozzle body. Lubricate the bore of the nozzle and the nozzle plug with a light film of petroleum jelly. To reinstall the nozzle valve plug, orient it so that it is in an open position with the face O-ring on the nozzle valve plug turned at 90 degrees to the normal flow of air through the nozzle. Gently insert the nozzle valve plug into the opening, taking care not to cut the O-rings against the edges of the opening on the nozzle body. Once fully inserted, reinstall the nozzle valve retaining clip. Replace the retaining clip if it is damaged. Slide the nozzle protector over the nozzle body, taking care to ensure that the aligning notch on the nozzle protector is engaged with the matching shape on the nozzle body. Finally, replace the O-ring around the threaded end of the nozzle. And screw the assembly back into the projectile cylinder. If the projectile is left exposed to extreme temperatures while charged, the pressure relief assembly may rupture and need to be replaced. Remove and inspect the pressure relief assembly by turning clockwise using a T30 Torx wrench. Clear the opening and lightly lubricate with corrosion block. Install a new pressure relief assembly. Use and care of the Rescue Max is relatively simple. Please refer to your manual for regular service intervals for your Rescue Max and for frequently asked questions. Although the Rescue Max is designed to hold air indefinitely, it is recommended that you periodically examine its condition. Proper handling and repacking of your Rescue Max assures a reliable, effective rescue tool is ready when you need it.